Calling all beings, y'all. Let's get it.
Put your hands together. Put your hands together.
Welcome back after a bit of a hiatus to Calling All Beings. I'm your host, DJ, along with my co-conspirator, co-collaborator, my co-purveyor of love to UFO Twitter, the man that we call Money Nathan.
Oh my goodness. What's up? That introduction just gets better and better. Yeah, thank you. Good to be here.
Yeah, good to have you, Money. He was already on with the UFO thinker, Frank. Today, you guys will see that whenever Frank decides to take it out the can and empty it out.
Mm-hmm.
And next is our humorous antagonist, the lovely one, the very pretty one, the eye candy of the show. And that's only because Deb's only showing her avatar. And that is Flarius Kevon.
Big up.
Sup,
Richard
man?
Doty.
We got Richard, yeah.
Okay, sorry.
I'm for Clint.
This is my
I'm for
fake
Clint.
microphone. You like my new fake microphone?
It's beautiful.
That's fantastic. Yeah.
It's
All right.
beautiful.
And let's welcome in our researcher, contextualizer, a woman who's got a grasp on all aspects of the phenomenon, both nuts and bolts, consciousness, all of it. She is tireless. She is the one and only. She is a great host in her own right of Deb's Data Dojo, adds this Money Nathan. By the way, capable brothers and sisters up in here. And her name is Deb. How are you, love?
Hello, I'm good. Hello, everybody.
What's up, Deb?
Yep, your
I'm
hair looks
excited.
great today. I'm sorry that Rick's not. I guess he did get to see it, but you know what can I say? Next, let's bring on my brother from the USAF. First, a combat controller. Yes, it is the most difficult school that we have in the Air Force, and that wasn't enough for him, so he went into academia, came back as an Air Force OSI special agent. Put your hands together for none other than Mr. Rick Doty!
Woo! Woo!
Greetings.
Freaking Doty!
Doty!
Greetings.
Oh my gosh.
I am an FBI agent, Doty. The ride is over. Sorry, that was from Point Break.
Good.
I know you saw that, right, Rick?
Yes, I did.
Oh,
Yes.
my
All
goodness.
right, I was doing Johnny Utah right there. Okay. I mean, I'm never going to get to utter those words in real life. I am an FBI agent, Doty. The ride is over. All right. Anyway.
Yes, we delivered that perfectly, though. Rick, it's great to see you. Good to have you back.
Thank
with
you.
us.
Thank you, Nathan.
Good to have you back, brother. Before
you.
we get
Good to be
started,
back.
dude, okay. We didn't know this going in. Your episode on Calling All Beings, right, Nathan, is the most popular episode we have ever done.
Numero uno. Yep.
Great.
That's for real, brother. We're serious. And I want to get to a question to kick us off here, Rick. I think what is the most important question on the mind of all of UFO Twitter, and certainly of the cabbies ourselves as well, is what has happened to the mustache, and is it going to come back? We were hoping the mustache would be back for this episode, and
No,
I'm
I
just gonna compose
gave
myself.
up on it. I had a small problem, a skin infection right there, and when I was growing it, and so I had to cut it off to get that to heal, and I just haven't grown it back. So
okay.
It's iconic, man. It's
Just a
iconic.
moment of
It's
silence.
iconic, man. It really is. It's
Yeah.
it really is one of the iconic mustaches since
Dude.
you know Edward James Olmos in Miami Vice, you know, the police captain. But we'll you know, I'll be sure to send you a fake mustache for your next appearance if that's okay. If you could
Yeah,
meet that
that's
requirement. Okay.
That's fine. Yeah.
I mean, because
That's fine.
I'm not going to go to Fort Bragg tomorrow and tell your instructors that you were, you know, 4 minutes late on a TOT. That's not going to happen. I'm not going to do that. You know, we sent you a 9 line. I'm just kidding. Anyway, all right, let me turn it over to my brother Money Nathan.
Well, Rick, mustache or not, you look great, and it's great to have you with us.
Thank you.
I know everybody is looking forward to hearing from you. I want to start off with just kind of really jumping in the deep end a little bit here, and want to get your thoughts on some things. So, I know you're familiar with kind of what's happening in the landscape right now with efforts like the Galileo project. The James Webb Space Telescope, which miraculously has gotten out to where it needs to be, and everything's calibrated. And we're all really excited to see what it's going to show us. Efforts from groups like UAPX, and even recently we've heard that the Brazilian government is going to be doing some hearings in their legislative body. So what I wanted to ask you is, do you think that with some of these efforts, these civilian and non-U.S. governmental efforts, do you think we're going to get something out of these that will, kind of prompt further dialogue or revelation from our government in this conversation?
Well, I think all these things on the agenda will tease the public more than it will answer any questions. I don't think there's going to be a disclosure in the realm of answering the questions that the public has regarding the subject of UFOs or UAPs. I do think that the James Webb Telescope, I think that's going to be a very interesting aspect of this entire storyline, because if they release everything that they are going to look at, there's going to be a lot of questions to NASA and NSA, because they're going to see things out there that we know it's out there, that's been hidden from the public for many, many years, going back to the 80s when we planted deep space satellites out there within the solar system. So I don't know how they're going to answer that, or maybe they'll just keep the telescope away from those things. And then of course there's the our friends, the ETs, who frequently visit our solar system, and if they take a picture of one of these crafts, how do they answer that? So that's the thing that I'm looking at. These groups that are going to present some sort of a disclosure, or I just saw yesterday where there's a possibility the Air Force is going to release some more documents pertaining to Blue Book that hasn't been released in the past. Well, that's going to present a Pandora's box, because the first question is, why hasn't the Air Force released everything on Blue Book? Why 50 years later, they're deciding, oh, we're going to release something now, more of the classified stuff. So I think there's a lot of teasing going on. I don't think there's going to be any major disclosure. Now, as far as the Brazilians go, I was down there some time ago, and I did a couple shows on some incidents that happened down there. And I met a Brazilian Air Force retired colonel who spoke better English than I did. I don't speak any Portuguese, but I do speak Spanish, but not Portuguese. But he told me that the Brazilian government is in the process of declassifying thousands of pages of documents and some photographs regarding what they had found and what they had taken photos of. And this goes back some 30, 40, 50 years. Back in the 70s, there was a very, very little has been released on this, but 2 Brazilian fighter jets chased some crafts. And this was right around the time of the Falkland War. Of course, that was Argentina, but the Brazilians were involved in that, believe it or not. And so they chased something, and they thought initially it was maybe a British, something to do with the Brits, but come to find out it was a ET craft that their aircrafts couldn't catch up to. So Brazil has some secrets, and they may release some of it.
Rick, what compels you to be as engaged from a civilian standpoint in this topic as you are?
Well, I was my lips were sealed for a good many years after leaving a government service, the intelligence community, and I had to really strain to keep my lips closed because I've seen articles, I saw people speak on TV and at venues, UFO conventions about subjects that I had access to or I knew about, and they were distorting the stories, totally distorting the stories, or they're writing books about something that never happened, or maybe a little bit of what they write about was factual. The rest was either speculation or outright lies. And so when my NDA expired, I decided, why not come forth? And I know enough. I know what I can talk about, and I know what I can't. And I have been visited by the FBI some years ago about something that I talked about, and they came and took my hard drive and so forth. And but anyways, they didn't find anything serious, and they just told me, hey, I don't think you should talk about that. And I fully admitted I did, and obviously they had a recording of it, and so there's nothing happened to me except they took my hard drive, never gave it back. But I have proof here that they paid me $650 for a new computer. So I have that receipt from the FBI, and I showed that a number of times.
Was it an upgrade?
I love it.
Yeah, absolutely, it was. Well, I could. Yeah, it was an older computer laptop. It was a
There you go.
2000 era laptop, and so I got a new one. Back then you could buy a pretty good laptop for $650 back in about 2004, 4 or 5. Anyways, I know what I can't talk about, and I'm not going to talk about those things. Technology advancements and technologies that I had access to both during my intelligence service and also my employment with Hal Puthoff at the Institute for Advanced Studies. I worked there for 11 years, and I had access to classified stuff there that I wouldn't talk about. But that's just all high technology that we've gathered, and I'm not going to talk in details about some kind of advanced propulsion system that we found out or we developed with assistance of ET technology. But everything else is pretty much open to me.
But do you feel? I feel like there's a passion inside you that you want people to know about this. I don't know. I just feel that you feel like it's there and people should know about it. And that's just coming from me. I'm not saying you're saying that, but I feel that.
Yes. I want to set the story straight. There's so much distortion, lies within the UFO community that's been going on for years. I tried to set the story straight. I'm trying to separate fact from fiction, and there's some things out there that have been written that's pretty good, and it's right on. People like Linda Howell, she's an excellent UFO researcher. I know her and I had differences some years ago, but I think those things have passed. But she's an excellent researcher, and she digs deep. She has good sources, good information, and so she's one of them. And there are others out there that do a pretty good job. And then there's some out there that just make up things, and just make it up. And I just can't sit back and see that happen and not comment on it.
We'll definitely get to LMH later because we do have a specific question, but our humorist, Flarius Kevin, wants to address you for the first time.
Oh my gosh. Richard Doty. It's so nice to talk to you. Oh my gosh, dude.
Thank you.
Richard freaking Doty. I'm a little starstruck, a little bit. My name's Kevin. It's nice to meet you.
Nice meeting you, Kevin.
This is my fake microphone, so I don't have a. I'm not going to start with a humorous question. Actually,
Yeah, he
I'll
doesn't
start
want to
with kind
put
of
you
a-
off.
No. Yeah, especially if you haven't watched the show. So, we'll just stay on topic. I got a question. So, like, with the 70 years of disinformation to evolve and circulate in like the public and both public and private domains, actually. So, how can the U.S. government now possibly convince the mainstream of anything related like to the topic? Like, do you think that the government may have backed themselves into a corner that they're now struggling to get out of?
Excellent question. Yes, absolutely. The government's been hiding this from 1947 on. I mean, they've been distorting the stories, outright lying, disinforming people. Researchers who found out about it back in the 50s were silenced. And there's a number of stories out there that are factual regarding the Los Angeles Times. And this is in the 50s. A reporter that was told about this whole story by an Air Force colonel out of Edwards Air Force Base, and then they shut him up. They just informed him, and so yeah, the government has a lot to. They have a big hole to dig out of in order for the public to believe him.
Did you think like people like Elizondo and Mellon, maybe that's what their MO is? Possibly to help out.
I think I don't know what their agenda is. I've never spoke to him. I actually was in the same room with Lou once and never actually had a conversation with him. I knew Mellon. I knew of him. The thing about Mellon that I question is the guy knows. The guy had all the clearances. All his tickets are punched. But if you listen to him, he'll talk for 30 minutes but not say a thing. He doesn't reveal anything. He just talks. And he hides things because I think he still has a NDA, or I think he still has a clearance that he can't disclose certain things. Lou, on the other hand, I think Lou is the same way, in the same position. He had access to highly classified things, and he just can't talk about everything. But there's a lot of people that are jumping all over Lou for this and that, and I'm not here to protect him, but if you check into his background, he's done everything he claims he's done. The government is just not releasing what he wants them to release regarding the intimate programs that he was involved with. But he has a good service record. Did everything that he claimed he did. I mean, it's easily, you can check on this stuff. And so as far as Lou goes, I think he's a real thing. But as far as the UFO agenda, I don't know. I don't know what he can say, what he can't say, and what his actual agenda is.
All right,
And thank you very much for that. It's literally like that could be like another 3 questions right there. There's so many places to go with you, but being that we're a show of 4, we got to get everybody in there. And so somebody who has been a Rick Doty fan since your last interview with us and then joined our show is Deb. Hi, Deb.
Hi. I told everyone that I wanted you to be my future BFF when I first came into Twitter, so I'm very glad to meet you. Please be my BFF.
Which means best friend.
Yeah. Okay, Deb.
Okay, that's not my question, by the way. But
okay.
So speaking of people coming forward and honesty versus confusion, etc., I'm sure you've heard the name Boyd Bushman, former Lockheed engineer. He came out into the public showing pictures that he said were extraterrestrials and UAP craft. These were some of the images. Some people have shown a toy that looks pretty much exactly like this, but he got very specific about involvement with these extraterrestrials. What are your thoughts about that? And in addition to that, where would one best find evidence for extraterrestrials being involved with the government or just being present?
Well, yeah, I've seen those pictures. I've had a number of very, very, very smart people analyze those pictures when they were released. I watched his video over and over again. There's a lot that he says that is factual. He did work for Lockheed, and he actually worked for a government, another government entity that was at Area 51. So his background is factual. I don't know where he got those pictures from. I know that there's some pictures, people, some skeptics that have produced a toy. I think it was a toy, a kid's toy that looks just like that ET. And they also recreated the background. So I don't know. The agency that was at least when I was in from 78 until 88, the agency responsible for ETs, the live ones, keeping them in captivity, was a Defense Intelligence Agency, DIA. And they were at Area 51. There is a location called Annex 2, which is northwest of Papoose Lake. You can download this on the internet. That somebody has taken a satellite photograph of that complex, and that is an actual complex where the ETs were being held, either as our guests or in captivity. And I think the latter is probably what we were doing with them. And so, if you want the truth, you're going to have to dig into DIA. And there's a guy out there called Gene Laskowski, and Gene is he was intimately involved with the program. He's still alive. He's on the internet. He does speak. He had 2 YouTube videos. He doesn't say a whole lot, but he talks around about the subject of ETs. He talks about in details about Area 51, but not necessarily about anything that's contained there. So obviously, he still has people watching him, but he does privately, and he's talked at UFO conventions and with private people. He was good friends with Wendell Stevens, and I'm sure everybody knew Wendell. Of course, unfortunately, Wendell passed away a few years ago, but Wendell always invited Gene there and would host a room where certain people would come in, and we could talk openly in that room about highly classified stuff. And Gene always spoke very details in that room about the subject. And he did talk about the ETs and let me I had a few things I wanted to talk about, and let me
Please.
Bring this up right away. One of the things that people don't realize is that we did, at least when I was in, we knew 5 races of ETs that have visited Earth. The first one, Eben, crashed in 1947 in Corona, New Mexico. We had him in captivity for 5 years. We learned a lot from him. And then there were 4 other races. Every one of those races were entirely different. Biologically speaking, they were entirely different. They came from different star groups, different solar systems. Their biological chemistry were entirely different. They spoke different languages. Some didn't speak any languages. It was all we didn't use the word telepathy. We used thought transfer, DIA, because it was more than just telepathy that they could do with a human. They could actually plant visions of things in their heads. So I read all the time about why can't we make contact? Why can't we bring these creatures together? Why can't we do this? Well, they're all different. They're all different. And along with them all being different, the 5 that I know of now, there's going to be people out there saying, "Oh no, there's 100 of them we got, or 1,000 that we know of that visited Earth." Well, maybe that's the case now, but when I was in, I can only speak about when I was in. We knew of 5, and each one of their crafts were different. Their technology was entirely different. So the idea that we had these crafts at Area 51 or Nevada test site, some of them were there, and that why can't we figure them out? Well, number one, we're looking at 5 different technologies, and so it's very complicated for our scientists to try to analyze and reproduce or recreate technology based on these 5 different technologies. We'd have to first of all learn their science before we could understand. And the biggest mistake we made back in the when we found these crafts or obtained them is that we were trying to apply our science and our technologies to understanding these crafts. And we ran up against a brick wall. And Hal Puthoff says this, Dr. Hal Puthoff, very brilliant scientist, very, very good friend of mine. He said that we couldn't understand what a bolt was if we were using our technology. So what we had to do, and what these scientists, brilliant scientists, because I'm not a scientist, had to do was begin to learn their technology in order to understand their crafts, and then that would lead in on the road of reverse engineering.
Fascinating. Deb has a follow-up for you.
Yeah, I just wanted to make
Brilliant.
sure I got this right. So, for someone to get the evidence that we all really, really want, that's what I think disclosure ultimately comes down to for people. We should look into Annex 2 at Area 51 off Papoose Lake. I probably said that wrong. Dig into the DIA, look at Gene Lukowski and Window Stevens. Is that correct? Just to summarize?
Yeah, Wendell Stevens, of course, he died, I think, 8 years ago, or I believe it was that. Wendell had a plethora of information about UFOs. He had thousands and thousands of documents, some of which were real stuff, highly classified stuff. I don't know how he got them. I know that when he died, the FBI paid his family a visit. And I don't know exactly what happened. The rumors are that they took a bunch, and Robert Dean, who was his very best friend, Sergeant Major Robert Dean, who died just a couple years ago, he tried to protect those documents. So Wendell had a lot of evidence on that. But what the area is S2 Annex. Northwest of Papoose Lake. You can find this on the internet, and you can actually download a satellite photograph of that facility. Now, whether they're still there or not, I don't know. There's some rumors that they moved them. And now, another thing I wanted to talk about, if I can, real quickly.
The floor is yours.
Okay, is Area 52. Now, I was actually involved in this history program where they were talking about Area 52 being at in Utah. Area 52 is not in Utah. Area 52 is Tonopah Air Force Base, which is west of Groom Lake. That's Area 52. That's officially Area 52. And at Tonopah, which now Tonopah, Groom Lake is all within the Nellis test and training range. Tonopah has some very highly classified projects, and has for years and years and years. And people kind of ignored that area. But to set the story straight, Area 52 isn't at in Utah at Dugway Proving Grounds. It's at Tonopah. That's actually Area 52. In fact, if you were able to enter the main gate off Highway 6 and travel down the access road 20 miles and come into the main gate at Tonopah Air Force Base, you'll see a sign right off to the right that says Area 52, Nellis Test and Training Range. Okay.
Awesome, man. Yeah, I know I had a friend who worked F-117s there after, I guess it was developed at Area 51, but I know when he worked on it, according to him, it was at Area 52 as a maintainer. So.
Well, I was there during that time period, and we had an OSI office at Tonopah. We had one at Grim Lake. We had one at Tonopah. I knew the agents at Tonopah, and what we were doing. Our counterintelligence efforts there at Tonopah. In fact, a quick story about about Tonopah. About 1982 or 83, and this is during the developmental stage of the F-117. They actually began to fly a bit earlier. They captured 2 Russians trying to penetrate Tonopah. They actually got within, I think, 5 or 6 miles of the actual base where the 117s were stored, and before they were captured by Air Force security police, turned over to OSI, and then eventually we turned over to the FBI, and so that's how important. I mean, it doesn't have anything to do with UFOs, but that's just how important that base was, and how much the Soviets during that time period, when it was interested at the base, were interested in the base, and so that's just a side note.
Where are they buried at Tonopah? So we can. I'm just kidding. I'm just kidding. All right. Is there anything else? Because the floor is yours. If you have something else that you wanted to speak about.
The disclosure projects. There's one that I am involved with. It's still kind of a hush-hush thing, but there are 12 of us, and we're all ex or former intelligence officers, some with DIA, some with the military, Air Force Intel, Det 22, which was the espionage collectors within the Air Force, counterintelligence, counterespionage, OSI. And we got together some years ago, 2010, actually. And we kind of pulled together our resources and thoughts and knowledge. And we added people, some very well-known people during that time period. And we came up with a plan, how we would like to see disclosure. There were people that were backing us, but in 2017, a few years ago, somebody kind of threw a monkey wrench in it. They reported us as being had an agenda of releasing the story, and this is about the same time that the Nimitz thing came out, and the ATIP and so forth. So we kind of put a stop to it. We weren't warned or anything, but there's some within our group that decided not to do it and backed away. And but now we're reforming this, and we're trying to get some other people involved. Now, it's not going to be a dramatic disclosure and the steps of the Capitol or anything like that, because they won't let. I don't believe they would let us do that. We had a very, very, very good friend in the government, Harry Reid, Senator Harry Reid, who was not necessarily in the group, but he was certainly peripherally on the outside looking in. And we had a number of meetings with him, facilitated by George Knapp. And he was all for this. He gave us a lot of advice on how we should do it. And, 90% of everything he told us was right on. Of course, there's always people within that decides, I don't think we should go that way. And we had a retired Air Force general involved in this with our group. And he said, I really respect Senator Reed, but he's never worked within intelligence. So maybe we should do it this way. So there was always some conjecture about, what we should do and should do. But he actually hooked us up with some people that we didn't even know of, who were retired years and years and years ago. And we met with these people. They weren't so open at first. They wanted the disclosure. They wanted us to. They wanted somehow the real story of the UFO phenomena to be told. They really wanted it, but they didn't want to do it because of their background. If I was to name them right now, everyone would know them. I don't care who you are. You're going to know these people. And so, we took their advice and said, well, let's see how we're going to do this. And so we've kind of, we met here and there. We've actually managed to dig up the old aviary, so to speak. And we're putting that together. And so we're working on it somewhat secretly, but we're working on it. And I think we have a pretty good idea. I don't want to, unfortunately, I can't talk about a lot of things that we want to do, but I think we have based on what Harry Reid told us and some of the others that were intimately involved in the program years ago, I think we have an idea how we can do this. And we're going to try to put it together in the very, very near future.
Well, this is very exciting, I think, to everybody that's on the panel right now and people listening. And also, I have one idea of what you could call your group. You could think about, I'm just thinking of a name, just throwing it out there, maybe like the Majestic 12.
Good one.
And with that, let me pass it to Money Nathan.
Well, that's fantastic news.
Was that good?
I love that.
Yeah.
It's got a great ring to it, really. But no, that's
I never
really
heard
exciting.
that before. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Maybe the Splendid 12. I don't know.
No,
But,
I'm gonna save the best for last.
Excellent.
Before I end this, I'm gonna tell you something that nobody knows about. So
okay.
Stay tuned.
We love you,
Fantastic.
Rick. If you didn't already know that, go ahead, Nathan.
Yeah, it's funny that you kind of went ahead and went there, Rick, because I was going to ask you a question along these lines. So, you've had decades to sort of think about this, and your place in this story is, very well known. And I'm sure you've thought long and hard and had conversations with your colleagues about, what is the best way and what the ramifications are for humanity. And, I just would love to hear maybe a little tidbit. I don't want to give away the full plan, but, in your words, what are the kind of downstream consequences of us getting more information about what's going on in an official capacity? I think we're all hearing what you're telling us, and we want to believe that, but obviously there's like this need for that stamp of legitimacy that the world will have to see in order for us to kind of all look at each other and go, okay, yeah, this is legit. So when that moment comes, if it ever does, we might debate on the gradation of what that might look like. What are some of the downstream consequences in your mind? I'm sure you've thought about this a lot, of what will follow.
Oh gosh, I could speak for hours on that. One of the things that disclosure creates, other than a million questions, is how does the government prepare the public for a disclosure of information that maybe the public doesn't want to hear. Now, I'll give you an example. What if we found out that EBA, the EBANs that crashed in Socorro, I mean at Corona and out west of Socorro. What if EBA 1 told us that they planted somebody here on Earth 2,000 years ago, though they didn't name him Jesus, but if that fully came out and was sanctioned by the government, what are religious leaders going to think? Number one, what are the person who's a born again Christian or a strong belief in their particular religion? It doesn't have to be Christianity. It can be Judaism, Islam, Hinduism. Then what are they going to think? That another alien race has planted religion on this earth? I mean, there's all sorts of complications in a disclosure, and the government has to sit back and think, okay, how are we going to handle this? The first thing they got to come figure out how to do is, how do you tell the public, okay, we've kept this from you for 70 years. We've lied to you for 70 years. We've disinformed you for 70 years. We had elaborate disinformation campaigns, some of which I was involved with, to fool the public into thinking that either, what you were seeing were UFOs, or what you were seeing was some kind of advanced technology, and hiding one or the other from the public, hiding our advanced technology or their advanced. How do we explain what President Reagan had access to in the 1980s that scared him, that kept him up at night? I mean, how do you explain all that to the people? Well, I don't know, but that's what we're up against in the disclosure. Mm-hmm. And of course, there's that segment, Nathan, of people who are going to say, it's all bull. You guys are lying. Right. Everything is disinformation. From the crash in 1947 until the Nimitz incident, it's all fake. So I don't try. I come up against that segment a lot at UFO conventions. I mean, I get hundreds and hundreds of emails a week from people, mostly positive, but there's always the skeptics. Some legitimate skeptics. Not they don't swear or cuss at me. I don't take those emails. They ask me really legitimate questions of how can we believe you now when the government's disinformed, not just me, but there were hundreds of other people doing the same thing I was doing, disinforming the public about the subject. Now, how are we supposed to believe you now? And my answer to that is, if the government does it in the right way and shows proof, they're going to have to come out and show proof, real proof, and then explain it. Okay, we didn't want to scare the public. We wanted to try to understand whether there was a threat to national security or a threat to security of the earth. Were these entities coming to our planet because they needed something here? They were hostile. They wanted to take over our planet because they had a dying planet. We have to explain all those. We have to have answers, because if we come out with a disclosure and not have the answers, that's going to create more of a problem than not disclosing.
Right. Well, I would say that to a certain degree, some of this would be refreshing, would be welcome, because a lot of the population, maybe most of the population, already believes the government's been lying to us, if not about this topic, about certainly lots of things. There's a lot of distrust in government generally right now. So this, in a way, could help restore trust by saying, just what you said, we were at fault. We made some mistakes. In hindsight, maybe we made some calls we wouldn't make now, but we did it for these reasons. I mean, that, to me, that sounds like a mature conversation to have, that adults in the country would welcome, because we're then treated like adults who could have that conversation. But I also want to ask you, sort of, what is the extent of the partnership with these other entities themselves. And obviously they're not all probably aligned and have the same agendas and all those kinds of things. But I would hope that there is some sense of collaboration. I mean, if they are far advanced from us, surely they've seen civilizations like ours before. They've been through some of this before. I would hope they could help us kind of through this process. Do you think that's a possibility?
Well, you bring up a good point, but that's provided we actually have thoroughly communicated with these different entities and can understand their agenda. And I think that's the problem. I don't know that we have. I never had access to that area of this dilemma. I knew they existed. I've seen photographs. I've seen crash sites. I've seen crafts. We chased one that escaped. But as far as knowing what their agenda is or having communicated with them, I haven't ever done that, and I hadn't had access. That would be very compartmented. I wish I did. I wish I knew those answers. I would think, and this is just what I think, I don't have any inside information on this, but I think you bring up an excellent point that there must be some sort of cooperation. If there are 5, let's just say for the sake of argument, 5 ET groups that are visiting Earth, there must be some sort of cooperation or agreement between them, so they don't get into a fight or some kind of a war between themselves.
Mm-hmm.
So I think there must be. Now, the other side of this, do we have some sort of agreement with them? Now, the only thing I can speak about is what EBA 1 said, is that he tried to facilitate an agreement between the Ebens and Earth. And now you can believe the Serpil story, you can believe some of the Serpil story, you can believe none of the Serpil story, but there was some sort of an agreement between the Ebens and us for them to come back in 1964 and pick up their bodies, the bodies of the Ebens that were in the craft, and then EBA 1 who died in 52. Now, I wasn't around back then, and I've talked to people who say, yeah, we had an exchange program, but there were only 3 people involved, 3 astronauts. And then I talked to other people who said, nope, there's 12. It's proven. The documents are there. So you believe what you want to believe. I personally believe there's strong evidence that there was an exchange program. Now, who went? I don't know. 3 or 12? I don't know. And so we had some sort of an arrangement with the Ebens. Now, Linda Howe actually had contact with the handling agent of EBA 1 before he died, and she talks more knowledgeable than I do about it, because I never spoke to that person. It was Air Force captain, intelligence officer, was actually lived with EBA 1 for 5 years and was able to communicate. So there's strong evidence that we have some sort of agreement or working relationships with the Ebens, but I don't know about the others.
That's funny, Rick, because you'd be like, telling your wife, hey, I'm going on TDY. I can't tell you where I'm going, but it's not very close. I don't know when I'm coming back. So the funding for this TDY, it's kind of indefinite.
Yeah.
But no, all kidding aside, I was blown away. I heard you say that. I want to shout out Thomas Fessler for the interview that you had with Thomas Fessler and his team. That was a fantastic interview. Very, very comprehensive in nature and brilliant questions from his panel. And so I heard you say, and this was in the lead up, studying up for this interview, I heard you say that about the and I thought that an exchange program would be total BS, total fabrication. And when I heard you say that, I was kind of blown away. So, and this also, I'm gonna get to this as sort of a follow up about a source that I had that said that they came and actually took a craft back that was given to us, and I'll ask you about that. But let's focus on the biological creature first, and then we can go to the craft. Are you where are you at on that situation that we actually had a second being that they gave to us in exchange for human beings?
I read a document that Wendell Stevens had that was heavily redacted, but reading through it, you could get the gist of what the subject matter was, and it pertained to an exchange program, and it talks about EBA 1 helped us with the items found in the craft, the communications device and the energy device, explained to us what they were and how we should use them to communicate or send messages to Serpo, the planet, to his planet, in order to bring a rescue ship back.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm pretty sure that's factual. Now, it also speaks about an exchange program, how they did this, and it's an elaborate system of how we were able to send messages that went somehow faster than the speed of light, because if that planet was 40 light years away, 37 or 38.5 light years away, how did we get messages back and forth as quick as they did? Well, there's a method to do that, and we know about it now. I mean, it's something that even Dr. Putoff has worked on. So anyways, they must have done it in some manner. Anyway, and so we did, and we set up this exchange program. They left EBA 2 here in 64, 65, whatever date you want to believe. Mm-hmm. And then our astronauts went back to Serpo, either 3 or 12, whatever you want to believe there. And then the EBA 2 stayed here until the other ones supposedly were supposed to come back in 10 years, but they didn't come back for 12 years or 13 years because of the time differences is so strange. And then EBA 2, then some people say he stayed, or actually it was a female. She stayed, and some said no, she went back. So I don't know anything factual other than what this document that Wendell had, and some of the other people that were around back then alluded to that. Yeah, we did have an exchange program. A particular general, Air Force general, unfortunately passed away some years ago, stood by that. I mean, he was at a UFO convention in 2006 and said, everything that you're saying about this exchange program is factual, except for the numbers of people, of astronauts.
If it was one, it would be incredible.
Exactly. Yeah, that I was just going to say that. You took the words out of my mouth. If it was just one person, we say 1 for 1. That would be a phenomenon. And so I think there's just 3. I think Linda would say there was only 3, but and then there's just another person out there who still talks about it, and his credibility is kind of questionable. That he says that he can verify that there were 12. So that's what I know.
Let me ask you something before we get into craft, because I'm going to ask you that question about craft. Do you know if Eben had emotions? Did they miss home? I hate to use an ET phone home reference, that type of thing. Did they feel emotion, like that they missed their kind? Yeah. Flair's doing the 2 fingers. Seriously, all kidding aside, was there an emotional component that you had been made aware of between either Eben 1 or EB 2 that they missed a connection with home?
Yeah, I have there's a person still alive today. He's up there, probably 90 something, who knew about EBA 1, actually met with EBA 1, didn't communicate that well with him, but spoke to his handler, the Air Force captain, and yeah, he did have emotions. He wanted to go home, and that's why he was trying to facilitate all these methods to communicate with his home planet to try to get a rescue ship back and take him home. He wanted that. Unfortunately, he passed away. Again, I don't really understand why, although there's people smarter than me, like Dr. Kit Green and some others, who figured out that our germs killed him, basically. We did just so yeah, he had emotions, and he did want to get back home, and that's why he was trying to get this done within his lifetime period. He obviously didn't know he was going to die, but and we were trying to do the same thing to help him along. And I think now I've been told by somebody who was in the Reagan administration back in those days that Steven Spielberg was given a lot of information about this.
Had to have been
a lot of information about this, and he, made the program ET based on EBA 1.
It's too serendipitous to not.
Exactly. Yeah.
The last question I have for you before I turn it over to Kevin, because we all need some Rick Doty in our life, and we only have 25 more minutes of Rick Doty, is relative. So I heard that from a source that I trust. So it's third-hand, second or third-hand information to me from a source that they trust, that and it goes on Doc Villet's theory that we've been gifted craft, something that I thought had no merit. And then I had to readjust my position on that, my thoughts on that after hearing this, that we were gifted a craft and then that craft was taken back. Do you have any opinion or knowledge of that happened?
I've heard that story from a number of people. I sat at I work for Gaia. I'm on Gaia, employed by Gaia. I was sitting in a pre-production meeting with somebody, and he would have known some of this, and he told me, yeah, we were gifted 2 crafts, and we studied them, and then we gave them back. Now I don't know anything firsthand. I didn't have the clearance for technology. I mean, that's a separate clearance, compartmented, and so I can't answer the question that whether I actually knew this or not. I know that we obtain crafts that no one knows about, crash sites, 2 of them in Nevada, that we found in the 60s and I think one in the middle 60s and one in the late 60s, and we recovered them and the ETs aboard them, and that's probably why we had them in captivity, because one particular group wasn't very nice. They didn't play nice, so to speak. And so, but as far as me actually knowing whether we had them and gave them back, I can just guess. I just tell you what I know as rumors, but I don't know anything firsthand.
Same here. Kev.
It's just wild. I mean, here's the thing. This stuff, it goes back way past 70 years. I mean, you've got the Romans, even their flying shields. You've got it goes back forever. I mean, Hancock says we're a species with amnesia. I'm wondering if counterintelligence had any efforts relating to like ancient sites, like maybe archaeology. Is there stuff that the government has kind of made a mess of in that topic as well, relating to the UFO subject?
I don't know anything firsthand, but I've certainly been to Giza, I've been to Mexico, I've been to the sites and looked at the artifacts.
Yeah.
And I personally believe there has to be a connection. It's just astonishing to see these pyramids and these other things that can be related to ETs. And what I'm really fascinated with are the petroglyphs or the cave drawings. Cavemen are
Yes.
10,000 years ago are drawing
Yes.
ETs. How can you rationalize that unless they have been
Right.
visiting Earth for that long?
And you've got the Dogon symbols, which are, are physics principles. You're like,
Exactly.
this goes back so far. We're only at the tip of the iceberg right now, I think. Like, here's the thing. One look at social media, and the public doesn't really seem to be interested in engaging in this topic. They don't seem to see the benefits in doing so. So someone who's served and has that inside knowledge, how concerned are you with that public perception? That we're all just kind of nutters when it goes back so far.
Well, there are a lot of people out there who I spoke to an archaeologist just a few years ago who doesn't necessarily believe in UFO phenomena, but his question is he can't understand how some of these archaeological sites can exist on Earth, and some of these other things that he's had access to and seen up front in person. How could it have been how could we generate something like that here on Earth in the caveman era or even in the Native American era, and understand it in the realm of advanced technology? Somehow something happened, and although I argue the point that there were ETs came here, well, he says or maybe something else. There's people that says it's interdimensional, and is I don't believe in that necessarily, but it's a possibility. It's a possibility. And so you find this stuff all over. And a quick analogy, I was during my CCT days, I was on an operation where we were in a remote area, and we were setting up a comm link for a special operations mission. And we got into this cave, and we found this box. And now CCTs we're pretty good in communications and any type of communications. And we're also taught to repair, being able to repair things on the field. We found this box. We knew it was something, but we couldn't figure out what it was. And so we kind of put it aside, and after the operation was over with, we took it back, and I gave it to one of our technicians who wasn't CCT, but he was a repair technician. And I just gave it to him, and he said, I saw him months later, and he said, you just gave us an artifact that's probably 1,000 years old. And I said, what?
Whoa.
Impossible. That thing had knobs on it. He goes, yeah, I know it had knobs on it, but we can't even understand it.
Wow.
So but that was before I ever got into the subject of UFOs. And then you jump ahead years later when I got briefed into the program, I always thought about that thing. Okay, it had to be an ET that they left here on Earth. But when I was trying to go out and find it, everything's classified about it now. So it's just an example of things that have been found that we can't understand, and they're thousands of years old. There's something that was found in Tibet years ago that is in a museum, and I think the History Channel or somebody, Learning Channel, somebody did a special on it, but they couldn't figure out what that was. But it had knobs on it, gauges. We didn't have that technology 10,000, 5,000 years ago.
Right. Yeah, we're still trying to figure out how to make the wheel. Debs.
Exactly.
Hi there. So I have some questions from the audience and quite a few of my own, and I'm going to try to do it as a lightning round in the interest of time. So we're just going to go with asking you to say yes or no, if that's okay.
Sure.
Okay, here we go. Is NASA keeping info from the public related to the UAP topic?
Yes.
Do you feel the government is overclassifying UAP information?
Absolutely. Yes.
Could human abductions be linked to the exchange program?
I wouldn't be in a position to answer that question. I don't
Okay,
know.
that's fine. And you can definitely say pass. Don't feel pressured at
yeah,
all. Okay.
Okay.
Do you support amnesty for people coming forward to help Congress with transparency, oversight, and disclosure?
Absolutely. Yes.
Okay. Is the U.S. government responsible for some of the cases of cattle mutilations?
Yes.
Okay. Would that possibly be due to Project Plowshare or experiments with mad cow disease?
Well, I don't know the exact reason, but I know the government has a program.
Okay. Okay, thank you. Is Project
Wow.
Blue Book Report 13 the document being released by any chance?
I believe it is. Yes.
Have you heard that Project Blue Book Report 13 has to do with human mutilation?
I know that answer.
You can say pass.
I'd rather not answer that.
Yeah, pass is totally fine. Don't forget
Okay.
to pass is cool. Okay. I looked at Project Garnet, which was the part of the documents that Linda Moulton Howe had looked at some time ago and found a connection to DNA. So my question is there a Project Garnet related to how DNA is connected to humans and ET?
Yes.
Okay. Is there a yellow and or red book used by the government to keep track of ET contacts and races?
Well, the yellow book is something given to us by EBA, and then the red book is our historical collection of UFO data.
Okay. Do you think that yes or no, the others use wormholes as suggested by Eric Davis?
Yes.
Okay. Is the UFO community a test study for disclosure?
Uh,
You can
some
talk.
of it, yes. I'd say
Okay.
yes.
Yes. Okay. Do you feel the phenomenon will reveal itself on its own in an undeniable way for the entire planet?
I'll pass. I don't know.
Okay. Has the government been experimenting with time travel?
Yes.
Has the government created a portal?
Not a portable, something else. It's something. Yeah.
Okay.
As you can tell, Rick, Deb has enough in the rapid fire round to put 30mm rounds in every tank in Kiev. We have like 17 rounds in it right now.
Yeah. No, I'm trying to do it. I'm
I
trying
love
to
it.
do it
Go ahead,
quick
Deb.
out of respect to time.
I love it.
Yeah. Was Clifford Stone accurate in his statements regarding moon dust?
Yes.
I already knew that one, by the way, because the DIA let that one slip too. Everybody.
Okay, Hermione. Go ahead.
Sorry. Do you think Bob Lazar actually worked at S4 to reverse engineer craft?
I know Bob Lazar worked there. I absolutely know he worked there. Yes.
Okay. Do you
Whoa.
feel like being public is suggested for other people coming out to keep them safe within, well, how should I put this? Within the public eye when they're disclosing information?
Yes.
Okay, I agree with that too. Are my labs occurring?
As what?
My labs, are they actually a thing?
Yes.
Do you think the government is continuing to try to use psychotronics, remote viewing, or mind control experiments on the public?
Yes.
And
Hey,
my last one, DJ.
I just want to make sure Grant's question got in there, but go ahead. Grant Levac, go ahead.
Well, yeah, that's I had some of his. I put some in here,
Awesome.
but some of them are too long to
Okay.
make into lightning round. Okay,
Copy.
last one. Do you think poltergeist, ghosts, cryptids, and other concepts like Bigfoot may be connected to the UAP phenomenon?
Yes.
Okay, and I guess I had one last fun one. How about adding, changing your name to Aviary 12? How about that one?
The group.
I like that one.
Good idea.
Aviary
Yeah,
12.
I saw that in the chat. Yeah.
Yeah.
Deb is so lovable. Money Nathan.
Okay, so I want to go to this place. There seem to be layers to this issue, and we, in many ways, it seems almost as we are disentangling things that have accumulated, this crust that has accumulated on this topic over the decades. That I hear from you, we need to kind of chip that away and get back to some more core elements. But a lot of the things that are talked about now, some leading theories, you hear the word consciousness. Consciousness is thrown out quite a lot. So do you think that, where do you think consciousness fits into the overall paradigm or model of reality with respect to this topic?
I think it's connected in some way. I look at it more philosophically than in details. Or I mean, I'm not a. That's probably the weakest area that I've ever studied or was involved with during my time in intelligence. But I think there's something to it. I've learned so much more after getting out and working with Gaia and listening to some of these contactees, abductees, and these people who are more attuned to the consciousness level and how they relate the consciousness to a living, something living. And I think that's fascinating, but that's really the only thing I can comment on.
Okay, great.
Rick, and because we want to give you the last 5 minutes to talk about what you had, but I wanted to get in there, and you spoke about autopsies, and we are both honored and blessed to have two people involved in therapy on this show. Deb is involved in therapy, and Flarius Kevin is also involved in therapy of children, and Deb, adults as well. And I thought about the autopsies because I think, I don't know if you had, I know you had witnessed something. I don't know if that was autopsies or actual interviews. But how do you think, or do you know that some of these medical professionals would be able to deal with what kind of trauma that may have overcome them as a result of performing an autopsy on a being?
Well, I know of some military physicians and some private physicians, and I can't speak for Dr. Green, a very, very good friend of mine. And we were actually on operations together, him and I, not medical operations, but
Operations.
real classified stuff. Yeah. And, but there are others that have spoken about this, about autopsies and how it affects them. It does. I mean, regardless of even a regular, and I have a very good friend who's a surgeon here in Albuquerque who is a general surgeon, and he's been one for 45 years, and he operates, and when he's dealing with children, it really affects him, even after thousands of surgeries. So when you're dealing with an ET, something that they've never seen before, there's a lot of red flags that go up. When I cut into this, there's fumes going to come out that's going to kill me or affect me. Is there a chance that they rejuvenate themselves and so forth and so on? So all those things play into these doctors. The two of them had worked for the Armed Forces Institute of Pathology in Washington, D.C. and done autopsies, and they flew out to Nevada to do them. and they all these things they worry about. They were in hazmat suits when they did it. I did actually see a part of an alien autopsy, old one. It wasn't an Eben. It was something. I think it was a Kingman crash. I saw about 7 or 8 minutes of it. It was. I think the whole thing was like an hour and a half, and I only saw a segment of it.
Wow.
Which was kind of odd because the skin texture were different. They had to use different knives and things like that. So I go back to what I said earlier. Every one of these ETs that we've had access to or captured or obtained in some manner are all different, biologically speaking. So we have to know, just because we did an autopsy on EBA 1 or the Ebens that were in the crash, doesn't mean that we understand the anatomy of this other one that crashed in Kingman that weren't Ebens, or the one that crashed in 1965 in Nevada that was some other race. It looked like an insect, a praying mantis. So they have to learn all over again, so to speak, because the organs inside the lungs and heart and what we would consider lungs and heart are all different. And then top it all off, we had to deal with one that breathed some methane.
Mhm.
I mean, they were from a planet that had methane in the atmosphere. So, and we had to facilitate them at the S2 complex in order to keep them alive. So these are all things that our scientists became rather good at after a while, but it affects them. And the ones that I've spoken with, yes, the answer would be yes.
You'd have to. And Rick, we can bring him to those cow pastures in Clovis. There's tons of methane. I think the beings could live there with no problem. The humans are having trouble breathing the air in Clovis, but I think anyway.
I agree.
Sorry, Cannon Air Force Base. I love you and I miss you. All right. Anyway, Rick, so the floor is yours for what you wanted to talk about.
Well, I spoke about different things regarding technology and the different ET groups. One thing I want to talk about is I want to tell you right now, and it's not, and I'm sure the FBI is not going to be knocking at my door, but
I hope not.
Everybody wants to know what happened to MJ-12. Now, over the years, there was really an MJ-12. I think it's pretty much been established that it was an MJ-12. It was a working group. It was called MJ-12, Magic 12, Majestic 12. And over the years, the name has changed. And what it's called right now is Operation Working Group 12. So I don't know if anybody knows this now, but I heard it from another person who would know. He's still in intelligence. And I'm not gonna disclose who's in that working group, but it's called OWG 12, Operations Working Group 12, and it's the controller for the information regarding UAPs and UFOs that the U.S. government has. Now, what I also want to talk about is the cooperation. This question comes up all the time. How much cooperation do we have with other governments? Well, I can tell you right now, we have a lot. I never talked about this in the past, but we have working groups. We have connections between most of our allied intelligence services. Primarily, our best would be with German intelligence, with the Bundesnachrichtendienst, which is their CIA, the Bundesverfassungsschutz, which is their counterintelligence service. So we have excellent working relationship. And what I suggest you do, your viewers do, is go to Gaia and listen to Tim. He's a German intelligence officer, and listen to him. We have a program, him and I, an episode, him and I talk about the subject. But you need to talk just to listen to him. That's just one example, but we do have a good working group with Italian intelligence, Japanese, South African, and others. But we have really close ones with our NATO allies. So we are getting information not only from us, but we're also getting information from other cooperation with other intelligence agencies in the NATO realm and some others that aren't NATO, such as Japan. So we're connected. And finally, somebody mentioned time travel. I was a counterintelligence officer for a project that occurred at Nevada test site, which is now Nevada National Security Site, that dealt with it. It was the Sandia National Laboratories. And believe me right now, when I tell you that we know how to time travel. Now, whether we actually done it or not, I can't go in. I don't know. But we know how we know how it's done. And I'll close with that.
That portends a lot of questions, Nathan.
I mean, I'm picking my jaw off the floor. So thank you so much for joining us, Rick. I'm not sure what I want to ask. I guess that what I want to ask you is something about, do you think let me put it this way, that there's a great novel written by a Chinese novelist called The Three Body Problem. I don't know if you've heard of it, but it's a trilogy, and it talks about, and Lou Elizondo mentioned this in one of his interviews, that it was a book worth kind of taking a look at. Anyway, it's excellent. But one of the concepts in this book essentially is that we sort of learn that whatever intelligence is present on the earth has a great awareness of what we are doing. And yet they are also kind of on their way in a way. They're not here at the moment, or they're kind of here in an observing capacity, but some of the reason for the obfuscation and the subterfuge of this topic perpetrated by governments is in part to kind of conceal what we are doing in preparation or response to whatever they may be doing. Can you speak to some of that? Even if we have no reason to think they are a threat, do you think there is an active effort to sort of conceal our own work to understand them and things that we may be doing in order to combat them, if we had to combat them? Not saying we would, but surely someone's thought about that and is thinking about how to do that.
Well, as GJ knows, the military plans for everything. Every single thing you can think of, the military can plan for 10,000 other things. Invasion from Mars, invasion from Venus. They have a plan, an operations plan for everything. And believe me, the United States government, when I had access to the war plan, Annex K, which was the intelligence portion of the of the United States war plan, in that, and it's highly classified, top secret. It had a plan for an invasion from and they made up a group of aliens, but from and advanced aircrafts, advanced spaceships, and so forth and so on and so on. And so we have a plan. And you bring up an interesting point that I don't like to talk a lot about, is we have a plan. We had a plan during my time period, and we have a plan now. It's probably more elaborate, and we have weapon systems that you haven't seen yet. When I was in, we had things in a battlefield situation in 1971. I was deployed to a hot area, and we had laptops. 1971, we had a laptop. So that's just to tell you that the military has technology now that the public won't get for 10 or 12 or 15 years. So we have weapon systems now. I know we do. I've spent time outside the test range up there and seeing strange things. Anybody go out there and park outside and look and watch these strange things occurring, these testing of these balls of fire or balls of plasma. So we have things that we're planning. Now, the question is, why aren't we using them? Why don't we give them to Ukraine? Or why don't we, well, it's not for Russia. It's for something else that could occur. So we do have plans, and we do have technology that's more advanced. I mean, I think it was the guy from Lockheed that said, we could take ET home, and he said that years ago.
Thank you.
Yeah, and there, like Rick said, there are O plans. I actually did an O plan back in, I don't know, it might have been like 2005 for something, and I was very surprised that somebody asked me to go be part of this planning exercise, of which, when you're done with the plan, they basically close it, they archive it, and then if that situation comes up, they unarchive it and say, okay, this is where we're going to start, at least by looking at how we're going to deal with this threat. And I did when I was part of one back then. I thought I was a little bit young for that, but I was selected to go do it. Kev, what do you got finally for Mr. Doty?
Well, actually, I just was wondering, since you've had a lot of close encounters of numerous kinds, have you endured any ailments from harmful UAP effects, like any physical ailments?
When I was at Tonopah, I got a rash on my hand after an incident that I've spoke about in Gaia on an episode, the Urania Mountain incident. I had a rash on my left hand, just the top of my hand, and it was a very painful rash that military doctors couldn't understand. I mean, I was seen at a clinic there, and I was sent to Nellis Air Force Base Hospital. They looked at it, and I was sent down to the University of Nevada Medical Center in Las Vegas. Dermatologist said, we don't know what it is. It eventually went away, but it happened after we were in that cave, and I didn't have it anywhere else on my body, but just my hand. And I don't know if that was because of that, but that's the only time I can remember ever having any kind of ill effects relating to UFO. Now, I've during the military, I've jumped out of airplanes and landed wrong, and things like that. But other than that,
all right.
What squadron were you, before we turn over to Deb? Were you in the 21st at Pope?
No. That was way. Special Tactics was after Project Rainbow. I was with a 714th Tactical Control Flight, and that was part of the 601st Combat Support Wing.
Mm-hmm.
And when I was in Germany, in Southeast Asia, I was with a 612th TAC Control Flight. And most of us, we had 1 and 2 teams. The 1 team were always assigned to Rangers.
Mm-hmm.
And the 2 teams were teams that went out on their own. I was assigned to 1 team, and so I was always attached to a Ranger unit. Not always. We did some work with the AirCav guys, but mostly it was with the Rangers or an infantry unit, setting up a air control system around a combat zone, as you know.
Yep.
And then we would call in
calls for fire.
Calls for fire.
Awesome. Debs has, I think, an audience question for you, and then that'll be our closer.
Okay. The question is from number 16, and it is, does Richard have a history of practicing remote viewing with Dr. Putoff?
Dr. Evil in the house. Go for it, Rick.
Well, I have delved into remote viewing. We weren't we didn't have any when I worked for him for the 11 years I worked for him. I was always interested in the subject of remote viewing because I actually in intelligence we were doing things that were supporting remote viewing. We didn't really know what we were doing. We didn't know what remote viewing was at that time. It was so classified and compartmented. And I tried it. I sat in a room and I tried to remote view something that was in another part of our building in Austin, Texas. And I got a few things right, but it takes a lot of training. Unless you're a natural remote viewer like Pat Price, yeah, it's not something that you can just learn overnight. But I did delve into it. But I was more fascinated by the others that were there that were remote viewing things that are like Mars and Neptune and things that were doing it. That just fascinated me. But yeah, I delved into it a little bit.
Deb has a follow-up. I know this is very surprising. Go ahead, Deb.
No, since he is your friend and perhaps he is willing to share, I have not seen anything that says whether or not Putoff himself is a remote viewer.
No.
Just that, okay, that's what I was wondering.
No, Hal's not a remote viewer. Kit Green's not a remote viewer. They facilitated. They were involved in setting everything up, administrative control. They brought in the people that they train. Of course, Keller and Geller and Targ and those people were the ones that were, and others that were training him. And there's other aspects. There's other aspects of the other remote viewing program that hasn't been declassified. And I was always told, Dr. Putoff always reminded me that there's a lot of things that are still classified regarding remote viewing. And one of them, and I'm not going to go into great details on this, one of them, if we have time, is that there is probably one of the most famous remote viewers that was non-military or non-government that we, the United States government, got a hold of, was a school teacher in Maryland, an African-American lady that was a natural remote viewer. She didn't know it. And she just happened to have her kids down at the bay, the Maryland Bay there, the Chesapeake Bay. And she had visions coming to her head of this and that. And she related it to somebody anyways. It gets back to government, and she ends up being really a fascinating remote viewer. And there's actually going to be a movie made about her sometime, but that's about all I can say about it.
Debs is from Maryland. Hopefully, they'll be having coffee next week, and that she'll be on the dojo. And Rick, can you get Hal Putoff? He needs to come on, Dr. Putoff. He's gonna have fun over here. You know that. You know what? Hal's not an open person. He's very, very, he's very quiet, and he. I think he's more or less apprehensive about questions that he can't answer. Not that he doesn't know about them, but that's just questions that he just can't answer. And people get the wrong impression of him. But, and I'm not going to speak for him, but I can certainly ask him to be on your show. Special co-host Rick Doty for that episode. Nathan?
Absolutely. Yeah.
All right, there we go. All right, everybody's going to say their goodbyes. Go ahead, Deb.
Thank you so much for agreeing to be my future BFF. I look forward to future conversations with you. I greatly appreciate you coming out and speaking to the public and trying to educate them.
You're very welcome, Deb. Nice meeting you.
Hilarious.
Mr. Doty, thank you for protecting us from the giant aliens, because I know one of your counterintelligence jobs was to neutralize threats. So thank you for getting rid of the big scary ones. And it was fantastic meeting you. Like, seriously.
Thank you very much, Kevin.
Yes, thank you
Nice
for
meeting
coming
you.
on.
You're very welcome.
Money, Nathan.
Yeah. Again, thank you, and thank you to our audience for participating today as well. Rick, it's always a pleasure, and I know there's so much wrapped up in the story, and there's so much left, so many chapters left to tell in this story. So thank you for being a part of it, and for continuing to engage, and for taking time today to be with us.
You're welcome. Thank you.
Rick, we still have tons of questions, so we got enough for round 3. We'll have you and Dr. put them on together, and you'll be a special co-host. Want to shout out to Akashi, Chris, Vinny, Frank from UFO Thinker, who had Vinny really wants to have. He's the guy from Disclosure Team from the UK. He's part of UAP Media UK. He's dying to have you on, Rick. So all of us, I think, would highly recommend Vinny. He is such a gentleman. He is the William Shakespeare of UFO Twitter, and like seriously. So like and subscribe, everybody. That's all we need for us. If you would like our YouTube, subscribe. And I want to thank you. It's an honor once again to speak with you, Rick. Obviously I joke around a lot, but the amount of work that you've done on behalf of our country and are continuing to do right now out of uniform is extraordinarily remarkable, and it's inspiring to somebody like me. So thank you very much, Rick. Namaste. And
I salute you there, DJ.
Thank you, sir. I appreciate you, sir. For Nathan, for Kevin, for Debs, and for Mr. Rick Doty, this is DJ saying peace out, one love, and we'll see you down the road.